The Cold Planet and the Last Cloth. The wind howled across the frozen plains. Thick clouds covered the sky, and not a single star could be seen. The ground was white with ice and ash, and the cold could bite through bone. She walked slowly, one step at a time, her feet bare and bleeding. Her arms held something tightly, her baby. A small, quiet creature wrapped in nothing but a thin piece of burned cloth. The last cloth she had. Her name was Sina. She was not from Earth. Her skin was pale violet, and her body was thin from hunger. Her eyes, big and silver, had not closed for 2 days. She had no food, no shelter, and now no clothes left. The only warmth came from her body pressed tightly against her baby. She had burned her last robe 2 nights ago. She had torn it into strips and set it on fire, just to keep the baby warm for a little while. She didn't care about herself. The child must live even if she didn't. Now she was cold, so cold that her fingers felt like stone. Her legs shook, her lips were cracked and blue, but she kept walking. If she stopped, the baby would freeze. She would never stop. In the distance, broken shapes of metal rose from the snow. A destroyed outpost. The humans had been here once long ago, but now it was empty. Sina had seen it from the hills and hoped maybe something remained, maybe a wall to block the wind, maybe a box of food, anything. She reached the outpost, but everything was silent. The buildings were broken like bones crushed by giants. A sign in human language hung crooked on a pole. She didn't know what it said, but the paint had peeled, and the metal was rusted. She crawled inside the shell of an old structure and sat down. Her knees were red with frostbite. Her fingers could no longer feel the baby's skin. She held the child close and whispered in her native tongue, soft words of comfort. "Stay with me," she said. "Please, I'm still here." The baby didn't cry anymore. That scared her. At least before, the baby had cried. Now the silence was worse. It meant the baby didn't have energy left to make a sound. Sina pressed her forehead to the baby's. Her tears froze on her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I tried. I love you." Then suddenly something moved in the sky. A light. Faint. Red. It flickered once, then vanished behind the clouds. It was not a star. It had a trail, like fire. It was falling. Sina blinked slowly. Was it real? Or was her mind playing tricks on her? She didn't know. But it had come from the west, far away behind the old ridge. Maybe it was a ship. Maybe something crashed. Maybe someone was alive inside. She had no strength left. But she stood, for her baby. She stepped back into the storm. The wind hit her like knives. But she turned toward the ridge, the direction the red light had fallen. She would go there, even if her legs broke, even if her heart stopped. As she walked, far above her, hidden in the storm, a small drone followed. Its eye was red. It sent a signal to someone far away. Subject located. Life signs, weak. Threat level, unknown. The drone hovered silently and watched her disappear into the storm, and on the other side of the ridge, smoke began to rise from fresh wreckage. A signal in the storm. The sky roared above her. Winds pushed against her body like invisible hands trying to throw her down. Every step felt heavier than the last, but Sina did not stop. She walked with her baby in her arms across frozen hills and dead valleys. There was nothing but snow, ice, and broken metal around her. Her feet bled with every step. Her hands were numb. But her eyes, they stayed locked on the distant smoke rising over the ridge. She didn't know what had fallen from the sky. It could be a meteor. It could be a machine. Or it could be death itself. But something deep inside her, a mother's instinct, whispered that she had to go, that the answer was there, that hope was there. The baby in her arms stirred. A soft breath, a small sound. It gave her strength. She moved faster. On the other side of the ridge, something hissed in the snow, a human shuttle, half buried in the ice, was smoking from its side. The crash had been rough. Panels were torn open. Sparks flew. The engine was dead. But inside the wreck, someone was alive. Commander Jalen Cross groaned as he pulled himself from the pilot's chair. His side was bleeding. His leg was twisted. But his training kept him calm. He had fallen far from the original path. His mission had been simple: explore and scan the remains of a lost human colony. But something had gone wrong. Gravity well. Old defense drones, no time to react. Now he was stranded on an unknown world. He reached for his scanner. The results made him freeze. One life form detected. Not human. Moving slowly. Toward the shuttle. Not hostile. His heart raced. He checked the outside cam feed. Blurry, static. But he could see something. Someone. Walking through the storm. "Who the hell is out there?" he whispered. Then he saw it clearly. A figure, thin and stumbling, holding something in their arms. Skin violet, eyes large and silver. Not a creature, but a person. An alien woman. Half naked. Frozen. Carrying a child. Back on the ridge, Sina reached the top. Her legs gave out, and she dropped to her knees. The baby stirred again, weak but alive. Her eyes widened as she saw the broken ship below. It was real. There was fire, smoke, light, and maybe life inside. She cried, but no sound came from her throat. Her body was shaking too hard. She tried to stand again but collapsed. The baby slipped from her arms. "No," she whispered. She crawled. She didn't feel the snow cutting her knees. She didn't feel the cold on her skin. All she saw was the hope below. She had to reach it, for her child. Inside the shuttle, alarms beeped. Movement. Just outside the door. Jalen grabbed his pulse gun and limped to the airlock. His fingers hovered over the door release. He didn't know if the figure was dangerous. He didn't care. He couldn't leave them to freeze. He pressed the button. The door hissed open, and cold air punched into the cabin like a wave. And there, she was on her knees, arms out, a tiny alien baby barely wrapped in anything, its chest barely rising. She didn't speak. She didn't beg. She simply looked at him. Her lips trembled. Her body swayed like she was about to fall again. But her eyes, they were full of silent pain. He dropped his gun without thinking. He stepped forward and reached out. "Come in," he said gently. "Please, come in." She didn't understand his words, but she understood his tone. She reached for him with the last strength in her body, and then she collapsed into his arms. The baby gave a small cry, a sound so weak it barely reached his ears. He didn't. Wait! He lifted both mother and child and pulled them inside. The door closed behind them. The storm screamed outside, but inside was warmth, light, safety. For the first time in days, Sina's baby stopped shivering. Jalen placed them both near the engine core. It gave off steady heat. He wrapped the baby in a thermal blanket and checked its breathing. Alive. Weak. But alive. Then he looked at the mother. She had passed out. Her skin was cold. Her pulse was faint. He stared at her for a long moment. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was she out there alone? He didn't know the answers yet, but he knew one thing: he would not let her die. Far above, in the clouds, a second drone appeared. Not human. Not friendly. It scanned the crash site. It had followed the scent of the alien woman. It had found her trail, and now it had found the human who took her in. Target marked. Eliminate both. First contact in the ice. The storm outside still howled, but inside the human shuttle there was silence. Thick, heavy silence. Commander Jalen Cross sat beside the unconscious alien mother, watching her chest rise and fall. Slow. Weak. But alive. He had wrapped her in his emergency thermal cloak and placed her as close as possible to the heating coil. The baby lay on a soft cushion made from Jalen's own jacket, its tiny body wrapped tightly in a survival blanket. He had done all he could, for now. But questions stormed through his mind. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she walking, alone through a frozen wasteland, with a child, and why? Did she look at him with fear and hope at the same time? Jalen didn't have answers, but something about her eyes haunted him. He had seen fear before on battlefields and wreckage zones on dying planets, but her eyes weren't the eyes of a soldier or a fugitive. They were the eyes of a mother who had nothing left to give, but still refused to die for the sake of her child. Hours passed. The storm outside got worse. Icy winds slammed against the ship's walls. The metal groaned, but the shuttle held firm. Jalen took a sip from his last water pack and leaned against the cold wall. Then, he heard it. A small gasp, a soft cough. He turned his head sharply. She was waking up. Sina opened her eyes slowly. Everything was blurry. The heat felt strange. The softness under her skin confused her. She reached out in panic. Her baby. Where was her baby? She tried to sit up but fell back. Her muscles wouldn't work. Then she heard it, a tiny sound. A baby's breath. A weak but steady sigh. She turned her head. The child was right there, wrapped in strange fabric, resting peacefully near a warm box of light. Relief hit her so hard she almost cried. But then, she saw him, the human. He sat only a few feet away, watching her quietly. She flinched. Her body froze again, not from cold, but fear. She didn't know who he was or what he wanted. Was he a trap? A collector? A slaver? She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. No words came out, only a whisper. Jalen raised his hand slowly. "Easy," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but his tone, it was calm, soft, human kindness in sound. Still, she didn't trust him. Her species had been hunted, sold, and killed for decades. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Jalen noticed her pulling away, her eyes darting to the walls, the door. She was planning escape, even now when she could barely sit. He didn't blame her. He stood up slowly, took a small pack of water, and placed it in front of her. Then he stepped back. Sina stared at the object. She didn't move. Jalen pointed to it, then mimed drinking. After a long pause, she reached forward with shaking hands. She drank, slowly, carefully, her eyes never leaving him. It was the first thing she had tasted in 2 days. Jalen sat back down and sighed. "You're lucky I saw your heat signal," he said. "Another hour out there and—" He stopped. She couldn't understand him anyway, but he kept talking. Somehow it helped. Then something changed. A sharp beep echoed in the cabin. Sensor warning. Proximity alert. Jalen stood quickly and rushed to the control panel. His eyes narrowed. Something was moving outside the ship, large, fast, not human. Sina heard the noise too. She sat up straighter, alarm in her eyes. She recognized that sound, the beep of danger. She crawled closer to the baby and covered its body with her arms. Jalen grabbed his weapon. Outside the ship, the storm was dying down. Snow still fell, but the wind had eased. Shadows moved beyond the frost-covered window. A tall, thin shape stepped forward. It was metal, black. No eyes, only a red light in the center of its head. Sina saw it and froze. No, not again. It was one of them. A hunter drone from the Empire that had destroyed her people. It had found her. Jalen aimed through the crack in the hatch. The thing moved closer, scanning the ship, its limbs bending in strange, unnatural ways. It stopped near the door. Sina shouted something, sharp, panicked. She grabbed Jalen's sleeve, shaking her head. He turned to her. "You know that thing?" he asked. She pointed to the drone, then mimed a knife to the neck. Her meaning was clear. It kills. No mercy. Jalen didn't hesitate. He slammed the emergency seal button. The door hissed tighter, locks engaging, but the drone had already begun cutting through the outer wall with a heated blade. Sina held her baby close and pressed herself against the far wall. Jalen raised his weapon. "If you're going to fight," he muttered to himself, "make it count." He stood in front of them both. One man, one pulse rifle against a machine built to hunt and kill. Outside, sparks flew. Metal hissed. The wall began to melt, and then, with a blast of heat, the drone broke through. Heat, hunger, and truth. Drone broke through the hull with a hiss of fire and steam. Metal screamed as the wall gave way. Sharp claws grabbed the edges. A red light glowed in the smoke. Jalen stood between the alien mother and the hole, his rifle raised. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He waited. The hunter drone stepped inside. It was tall, over 7 feet. Its body was black like obsidian, with long arms and thin legs. Each step it took was silent, smooth, deadly. Sina gasped and curled herself around her baby, pressing them into the corner of the shuttle. Her body shook. Her lips moved as she whispered old prayers, words from a world that no longer existed. She had seen drones like this before. They had burned her village. They had pulled mothers from homes, taken their children, torn apart families with cold, silent precision. This one had come to finish what the others had started, but it hadn't expected a human to be in its way. Jalen's pulse rifle hummed with power. "Come on, you piece of junk," he growled. "Try me." The drone scanned him. Its red light blinked once, then focused. Target, armed human. Threat level, medium. The drone lunged. Jalen fired. The first shot hit the drone's shoulder, throwing sparks into the air. The second shot struck its leg. The machine stumbled but didn't fall. It slashed its claw forward. Jalen ducked, rolled, and fired again, this time hitting the drone in the center of its chest. The drone screamed, a sharp mechanical wail, and staggered backward. Jalen used the moment to slam the emergency override. A panel dropped from the ceiling, releasing a thick spray of freezing foam that coated the drone's legs. For the first time, it slowed. Jalen didn't stop. He grabbed a metal pipe from the wall and swung it hard, cracking the drone's glowing. It sparked once, then fell, dead. Jalen dropped the pipe and fell to one knee, breathing hard. Behind him, Sina stared in silence, her eyes wide, her hands trembling. He had fought it. He had protected her. Jalen turned to her. "It's gone," he said softly, though she didn't understand his words. "You're safe now." She still didn't move. Not yet. Then slowly, she lifted the baby from her chest and placed it on the floor. She pulled herself to her knees. Carefully, she crawled to him. She stopped in front of him and did something that surprised them both. She reached out and touched his chest, right above his heart. Then, she whispered one word from her language. It sounded like love, and Jalen didn't know what it meant. But the way she said it, it felt like protector. Later, when the storm finally cleared, Jalen patched the broken wall with scrap metal and heat tape. The shuttle was still damaged, but it would hold. He gave Sina and her baby warm food paste, soft cloths, and a spot to sleep. The baby, stronger now, made soft cooing sounds. Sina smiled faintly for the first time. Then, she began to draw in the dust on the floor. Symbols, shapes, a story. Jalen watched, curious. She drew a circle. That was her home world. Then she drew flames, drones, warships, death. Then she drew her, people running, carrying babies, hiding in caves. Then at the edge of the dust, she drew one small figure, alone, holding a child, and next to it, a tall figure, with a gun. Him. She pointed to him, then to the drawing. Then she placed her hand over her heart. No words, but the message was clear. You saved us. Jalen felt something stir inside him. This wasn't just survival anymore. This wasn't just some lost alien trying to stay alive. This was a mother who had lost everything, except the one thing she refused to let go of. Her child. And now, they were in this together. He looked at the shuttle's fading energy bar. The power cells wouldn't last forever. He had maybe a few days left of warmth and light. No comms. No backup. If rescue didn't come soon, they would freeze together, unless he did something. He opened the floor panel and pulled out the backup signal beacon. It was old, slow, and short range, but it was all he had. He began setting it up. Outside, the frozen land was still and silent, but far away more drones were waking. The one that died had sent a signal before falling. Enemy found. Coordinates marked. Send reinforcements. Back inside, Sina watched Jalen carefully. She didn't know what he was planning. She didn't know where they were going. But she trusted one thing now. This human had fought for her, and for that, she would follow him, even into death, even into the storm. The danger hunts at night came quickly on the frozen world. There was no sunset, no soft colors in the sky, only the light vanishing all at once, swallowed by heavy clouds and endless snow. Inside the damaged shuttle, Commander Jalen Cross sat near the flickering engine core, holding a wrench in one hand and a broken signal transmitter in the other. He had been trying to fix the beacon for 2 hours. Still no signal. Still no help. The backup generator gave off weak heat now. The fuel cell was almost empty. He glanced at the power display. Maybe 6 hours left. Then it would be cold again. Colder than before. He looked across the small cabin at Sina. She sat with her legs tucked beneath her, her baby pressed gently against her chest. The child had stopped coughing, but its skin was pale and dry. It needed more than warmth. It needed real shelter. Medicine. Food. Things he couldn't give here. Not unless they survived the night. Outside, in the snow-covered valley, something was moving. Large shapes, tall, inhuman. They didn't walk like men. They glided across the snow without sound, their long limbs stretched out like shadows. 4 of them. Then 6. Each had a single red eye that pulsed softly in the darkness. Each was a hunter drone, smarter and stronger than the one that came before. They had received the distress signal from their fallen scout. They had tracked the last survivor of the purge, and now they had found her. Inside the shuttle, Sina suddenly stood. Her eyes were wide. Her ears twitched. She turned her head slowly toward the wall. She heard something. Jalen looked up. He knew that look. "What is it?" he whispered, even though she couldn't understand the words. Then the motion detector beeped. He turned to the screen. 6 life forms. Approaching fast, his heart sank. "This can't be happening," he said under his breath. He grabbed his rifle and limped toward the door. Sina moved between him and the child as if ready to block any danger. "No," he said gently, waving her back. "I fight. You stay. Protect the baby." Sina didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. She nodded once, then wrapped her arms around her child and hid behind a stack of storage crates. The wind screamed as the first drone landed on the roof with a heavy thud. Jalen aimed his rifle at the ceiling. He knew the shuttle wouldn't last long against this. Many. They had to move. Now. He rushed to the emergency hatch at the back of the shuttle. It hadn't been opened since the crash, and it was half frozen shut. He slammed his fist against the panel, hit the override, and heard the lock start to groan open. A loud crash came from the front of the ship. One of the hunter drones had slammed through the outer wall. Its glowing red eye stared directly at him. Jalen fired. The drone reeled but didn't fall. Another drone appeared beside it, then a third. "Go," he shouted, pointing to the hatch. Sina didn't wait. She grabbed her baby and sprinted toward the back, her legs slipping on the ice-covered floor. Jalen tossed her a small emergency pack. Rations, thermal gel, a heat blanket. She caught it, nodded once, and dove into the tunnel beyond the hatch. Jalen fired again, One drone fell, but two more came. He backed into the tunnel, then sealed the hatch behind him with a spark grenade, melting the controls from the inside. They wouldn't follow easily. The escape tunnel led into the frozen hills. It was narrow, dark, and twisted like a dying snake through the ice. Jalen limped beside her, barely able to keep up. Blood soaked through his leg bandage again, but he didn't stop. Just a little farther, he muttered. There's got to be shelter, anything. Suddenly, Sina let out a soft cry. She pointed ahead. Jalen looked. Half buried in snow was a structure, old, rusted, alien design. Not human, a crash site, a different kind of ship, one even older than his own. He didn't care what it was. It was shelter. They reached the doorway and pushed through. Inside was dry, dark, and filled with strange glowing plants growing through the cracks in the metal walls. The lights gave off heat, just enough. Sina placed her baby on the ground and covered it in the thermal blanket. Then she turned to Jalen, her eyes full of fear and gratitude. Jalen collapsed against the wall, gasping. Then the sky outside rumbled. Again, the drones weren't far behind, but the cave-like structure had something they hadn't seen yet. A defense core, ancient, still humming. He looked at the blinking console, full of alien symbols. He had no time to learn it. But maybe it would understand his language. He typed one word into the console. Defend. It paused, then blinked. Defense mode activated. A deep sound came from beneath the floor. Turrets unfolded from the ceiling. Energy shields snapped into place over the doorway. Outside, the first drone stepped into range and vanished in a blast of red fire. Sina gasped. Her child stirred. Jalen smiled, blood on his lips. They weren't safe yet, but for the first time since the crash, they had a fighting chance. Escape across the frozen hills, the ancient walls of the alien shelter hummed with energy. Turrets above the entrance still glowed red from the last blast. Smoke and broken drone parts lay outside, scattered across the snow like dark metal bones. But Jalen knew it wouldn't last. That defense core was old. The power cells were weaker than they looked. The next wave of hunter drones might be bigger, stronger, and when they came, this place wouldn't hold. He knelt beside the baby who was finally sleeping soundly beneath layers of soft cloth and thermal padding. Sina sat nearby, one hand gently resting on her child's chest, the other wrapped around a cup of warmed nutrient gel Jalen had managed to heat using the strange alien systems. Her silver eyes watched him, full of questions she couldn't ask, but she didn't need words. She could see the worry on his face. Jalen stood and limped toward the back of the structure, following the blinking signals on his wrist tracker. The terrain map, updated by the old ship's interface, showed something curious about 5 kilometers northwest. A valley, deep, hidden, with metal walls built into the mountain. A place the scanner labeled as Human Colony Outpost. Abandoned. His heart jumped. Could it still have power? Could it still have a working transmitter? He returned to Sina quickly. We're leaving, he said. There's a chance we can reach help. Of course, she didn't understand the words, but she understood his hands when he pointed to the map, to the child, and then to her. His eyes said the rest. Come with me, or die here. She didn't hesitate. She wrapped the baby tightly and slung the supply bag over her shoulder. She was ready. The wind outside had grown stronger. Snow flew in waves, blinding and bitter. Each step into the storm felt like walking through knives. But Jalen didn't stop, and neither did Sina. She carried her child without complaint. He limped forward, rifle ready, scanning for movement. Behind them, the old shelter's glow faded. Into the blizzard. They climbed frozen hills, crossed black valleys, and moved through broken forests of ice-covered bone trees. The world around them was dead, not just cold, but lifeless. No birds, no animals, no signs of anything that breathed. but the feeling of being watched never left them. Sina felt it first. She turned her head sharply, eyes squinting into the storm. Then Jalen heard it too. Crunch. Crunch. Behind them. He dropped to one knee and aimed his rifle. Sina dropped low, covering the baby with her body. Nothing moved at first. Then a shape. A tall, black figure. Another drone. Alone. Not a hunter, but a seeker. A different kind. It didn't charge. It watched. Then it let out a high-pitched scream that echoed through the hills. Jalen's eyes widened. A beacon, he muttered. It's calling others. He fired. One clean shot through the eye. The drone dropped, dead, but the sound remained in the air. We have minutes, he said, turning to Sina. She didn't need translation. She felt it in her. Bones. They began to run. For over an hour they moved without rest. Jalen's leg burned. Blood soaked through the wrap again. His breath came in short gasps, and the snow seemed to pull at his feet like it wanted to swallow him whole. Sina stumbled, nearly falling once, but she never dropped her child. She whispered softly to the baby with every step. Not songs, but promises. We're almost there, she said. We'll find a new home, just hold on a little longer. Then, through the swirling snow, a shape. A wall. Gray, wide metal, buried into the mountain, the human outpost. Jalen nearly cried when he saw it. He ran forward and pulled open the access panel. Dead. He cursed and slammed the side. Sina stepped beside him. Her hand, still cold and trembling, reached out and touched the same panel. A soft blue light blinked. Jalen stared. The door hissed open. It recognized her. Of course, he whispered. Your people built this with us. They stumbled inside. Lights flickered on. Heat rolled out. The baby stirred and let out a soft, healthy cry. Sina sank to the floor and held her child close. Jalen dropped to his knees beside them, exhausted, but alive. Inside the outpost were more than lights and warmth. There were medical kits, food stores, and most important, a long-range transmitter. Jalen activated it. He typed in the emergency code. Then the message, human survivor, alien mother and child, under attack, immediate extraction required. He hit send. The signal flew out into the stars, far away, in orbit. A human ship caught the ping and turned toward the planet. Salvation from the sky. The outpost door was sealed, but it shook with every blow. Boom, boom, boom. Outside, in the white storm, red eyes moved closer. 12 now, maybe more. The last wave of hunter drones had arrived. Bigger, faster, smarter. Designed for one purpose: eliminate all survivors. Inside, Jalen stood at the main control panel, breathing hard. His wounded leg was wrapped again, tighter this time, but the pain was spreading. He didn't care. Not now. The long-range transmitter glowed green. The signal had been sent, but there was no answer. Not yet. And time was running out. Sina sat on the floor, holding her baby close, rocking him softly. The child slept now, wrapped in thick layers of cloth and warmth, a tiny spark of life in the frozen world. She whispered a prayer, an old one from her homeland. May stars find us. May sky open. She didn't know if anyone would come. She didn't know if the humans' strange machines would work, but still, she hoped. And then, the wall cracked, a long claw punched through the metal. Jalen aimed his pulse rifle and fired. The claw withdrew with a screech. We don't have much time, he said aloud, even though she didn't understand the words. If they break through, we're done. He limped across the room and pulled open a crate. Inside, one last charge, a high-voltage energy mine. The kind that could take out a squad of drones if placed right. He held it up to Sina, pointed to the door, then to himself, then shook his head slowly. Sina's eyes widened. No, she whispered. Jalen smiled weakly. You have to survive. Both of you. She stood. She stepped forward, and then, in the simplest gesture, she took the mine from his hands and placed it beside her. She would stay too. Together. The ceiling above them cracked. Snow poured in, a drone dropped into the room. Sina screamed and shielded the baby. Jalen fired, hitting the drone mid-fall. It sparked, jerked, and slammed into the floor. Dead. Then 3 more shapes appeared at the broken entrance. The power mine beeped, primed and glowing. Jalen raised his rifle. "Come on," he growled. And then, the roof exploded, not from a drone, from above. A blinding light burst through the storm. Wind blew outward, the snow scattered. A loud roar like thunder ripped through the sky and from the clouds. A ship, a human rescue cruiser. Large, heavily armed, black steel with blue thrusters, glowing against the white storm. From its underbelly, a round pod dropped. It hit the ground and unfolded in seconds, releasing a squad of soldiers in full gear. The drones outside turned to face them. Too late. The first strike came from orbit, a plasma cannon blast that lit up the ridge. 2 drones vaporized instantly. Then the squad moved in, firing with perfect aim. Inside the outpost, Jalen shielded Sina and her baby. Dust and heat blasted in from the open roof. Then a voice came through his comm. "This is Vanguard Rescue. We received your signal. Hold position." Jalen dropped to his knees, laughing in disbelief. "About time," he whispered. Minutes later, boots hit the floor. 3 soldiers rushed in, securing the room. One of them, Captain Reeve, removed his helmet and looked at Jalen. "You look terrible." "You should see the other guys," Jalen muttered, nodding at the fallen drones. Then, Reeve's eyes landed on Sina and her child. He stepped forward, stunned. "She's not human." "No," Jalen said, "but she's more human than most I've met." Reeve crouched. "Is the baby hers?" Jalen nodded. "And we're not leaving without them." Reeve stared for a moment. Then he tapped his comm. "Bring down Medivac. 2 extra spots. Non-human, non-hostile." As the ship lifted them into the sky, Sina sat beside Jalen in the med bay. Her baby rested safely in her arms. She looked out the window. The ice world faded behind them, a place of pain, death, and silence. And yet, also the place where a stranger had saved her life. She reached for Jalen's hand and placed it over her heart. Then she whispered the same word again. "Loven." This time, he understood. Epilogue. Weeks later, on a human medical station in orbit, Sina wore a white robe. Her wounds had healed. Her child, Ray, was growing strong and healthy. Jalen walked through the corridor, limping slightly, a fresh bandage on his leg. He found her standing by the viewing window watching the stars. "You're free now," he said. "You can go wherever you want." She looked at him, then down at her baby, then back to him, and shook her head slowly. Then, in slow, broken English, she said, "We go. With you." Jalen smiled. Outside the window, stars stretched across space, and a new story had just begun.